Hi, it's Mark Murphy, and this is TravelTube.com, your place for the actual travel experts, these travel agents, travel advisors, whatever you want to call them. And I've got a great guy I'm going to interview in just a moment. His name is Mark Hennigan with Dreamers Travel. And like I think a lot of people, he came into the industry as a second career, but I want him to tell you kind of how he got into the business and why, and a little bit about the journey. And maybe we'll get into some nuts and bolts. But a guy I met, I think it was around 2010, maybe 2009. And it was an Usher concert at the Moon Grand in Cancun. So let me just bring on the man himself, Mark Hennigan. Yeah. All right. Here he comes. Hang on, folks. You ready? He's coming. Bam.
Wow. What an introduction. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that.
It's the Super Bowl of travel, brother.
Super Bowl that's exciting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So when did you physically get into this business?
This June, we'll be celebrating our 18th year.
All right. Which is kind of nuts because you came in after 9/11.
Yeah.
And when everybody said travel agents were going out of business. So
they don't exist, Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember my wife's brother mentioned we mentioned to him in a conversation when like what I was doing. He's like, "Are you crazy? Nobody uses travel agents. I do Groupons." I'm like, "Okay."
Oh, that is classic. I use Groupons. All right. All right. Well, have we converted him?
No, and I will. I don't plan to.
I've got some family members like that, but it kind of revolves around politics.
He's not my line client. He's just awesome. Family.
There you go. Yeah, it's better to keep family separate from that.
Yes, family is always separated from business. Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely. So, what were you doing before you got into travel?
I was a vending director for a healthcare company in Baltimore. So we had major hospitals in Baltimore, and all the vending machines in the hospitals, their satellite locations. I oversaw all those, did the ordering, inventory, hiring, firing, money, all that accounting stuff. And then, I don't know, I just had this whim one day that I wanted to have my own business. Had no idea what it was going to be. And this travel thing popped into my head. And I'm like, let me look at this. So I started tinkering around with some things and started to be like timeshare stuff on one side. I'm like, this isn't for me. And then I met an Apple vacation rep one time and we started talking. And that's kind of how I got into this business.
So somebody you knew personally that was a rep for Apple, and then they kind of
just through the initial stages of starting the travel thing. I went to an event and there was an Apple vacation rep and we started. She goes, "Are you a travel agent?" I'm like, I'm not sure what I am yet. So I wasn't classified yet. So and just kind of there, I opened, started this thing, Dreamers Travel. I named it after my wife because she didn't dream and she didn't travel. So I'm like, we're going to change that. So that's where the name came from. And then, we always use the analogy, I was baptized by fire because I learned so many things the hard way. Groups, learned them the hard way. We lost money sometimes the hard way. So it was a process to learn that. So, but I came in not under a host, not under any mentoring program, just literally came in by myself. We started doing bridal shows and the business grew. And that's kind of where we started from.
So it was the bridal shows, were those the angle that you kind of came in on to like really grow the business, that niche?
We did. My wife in her background of the food industry, she used to always do food shows, food expos and for big corporations. And so we started doing bridal shows. And I remember our first bridal show, we set the booth up and I sat down behind the chair and she said, no, come here. I said, what? She goes, take the chairs and take them and move them. I'm like, what are you doing? She goes, we don't sit down working a booth. We stand up. I'm like, okay. So that's how we kind of did it, just working. But we started working bridal shows and we did that, all the way probably up to COVID. And we don't do them anymore because naturally we don't need to do them. But yeah, we built our business on bridal shows.
So interesting. And was that something that someone kind of led you down that path? Like, how'd you choose that? Or was that just doing your research and kind of saying, hey, that's a great segment?
Yeah, through just trying to get the business started and actually meeting with a few reps, like the Apple rep, the Sandals rep, and they're like, hey, why don't we do a bridal show, the Co-op bridal show and stuff. So the more shows we did, naturally, that's the way the business was growing. And then we got our name out there. We're meeting other representatives and tour operators and hoteliers. And that's how we met clients, and we still have clients today that we met 18 years ago at a bridal show.
Now, back then, were you with a host agency? Did you have your own ARC, IATAN? Like, what were you doing?
I just went out and got my own CLIA number, and today we still operate under the CLIA number, and everything was independent. I never, when I was in corporate world, you have all these bosses and you have all these meetings, and I always put in my head that I wanted to work harder for myself than I would someone else. That's how I kind of transitioned into Dreamers Travel. I've been out 4 or 5 years ago. No, it was pre-COVID. I was working 2 jobs. So when I started Dreamers Travel, I was doing that vending job, and I would leave my house, literally, no shit, at 1 a.m. and go out and do the vending job, get back home by 7, come to the office at 8, work till 5 o'clock. And so I was doing 2 jobs at the same time for quite a while.
How long did that process take before you got enough traction to go full time on your own?
That's a good question, Mark. I will always give credit to my sandals rep, Liz Perky. I started the business on my own before my wife came in. I started the business on my own for about 3 years. Laura would go out and do bridal shows with me, but she was always behind the scenes because she had a corporate job. And I spent thousands of dollars doing bridal shows and marketing and just trying to get my name out there. And after 3 years, it really wasn't being successful the way I thought, and I wasn't making tons of money. And I was just ready to throw in the towel, and I was just ready to quit. And I called my sandals rep and said, hey, I just don't think this is working. She said, no, let's do lunch. And we met for lunch, and she said, Mark, you're so good. She goes, I can't give you the passion to sell travel that you already have. But what I can do is train you and give you the tools to sell travel. And I'm like, what? And so lo and behold, I spent a lot more time with her and went on a couple FAMs with them, and just really, I always give her credit that she saved my business, because I would have thrown in the towel.
Interesting. So that's, it's interesting, because by having a CLIA number or any direct identification that you're recognized by the travel suppliers with, you are able to have that direct relationship, and you're able to demonstrate what you're delivering for them. I think the challenge with the host model is it's all going through that one number, and it's hard to showcase yourself and have that individual relationship. I know it's always been the challenge. As you remember, we created a magazine called Agent at Home, because it was about how do you market and sell yourself as a home-based travel business and all the hurdles that you have to overcome. So it seems to me that if you were going to bring on a travel agent today, or you're going to mentor somebody who wanted to get into the business, you would tell them, let's go direct, let's establish those relationships. And at the end of the day, the suppliers are a great tool for you to build your business.
It's the relationship. And it's funny you mentioned it, Agent at Home. I used a lot of the tools in that magazine to make those connections. There was always events listed in there. Was always emails from hoteliers and tour operators. And I reached out and I utilized that magazine as a resource to make the connections. This is a relationship business, like your family. You have cousins, aunts, uncles, and stuff. This relationship, this business is the same thing. You have the tour operators, the hoteliers, the cruise partners, and you have all those. So, I didn't want to go under a host, because I felt I was going to be under that umbrella of the boss again. And, some of the hosts, not all of them, they're not all related the same, but some of them have certain criteria of what you can and cannot do. You can't meet with the BDMs. You can't do this. And
really, hold on. So in the case of some host agencies, they don't want you meeting directly with the BDMs?
They don't, because the BDMs are meeting with corporate on the corporate level. So yeah, so I didn't want that. I want to build my own relationships and make my own connections. So and we have 14 independent contractors underneath of us. And I encourage them, go meet with the BDMs. Look, you go build your business, but you're building it under our name. So I don't have any restrictions. We have a girl, Wendy, who started some stuff up in Upper Maryland, and she's hosting once a month events. She did a sandals event last month. This month, she's doing an Aruba event. She's doing a Royal Caribbean cruise event next month. And she's doing this to promote her own business, because I said, hey, you're not restricted here. Go build your business. I'll help them. We literally wrote out that we drove an hour and a half from our house to go meet her and to support her for her event. So we encourage them, go make the connections, go build the relationships. And we want those people to be successful, but not everybody feels that same way.
Interesting, because on the other side of the coin, the benefit of the host agency is the existing dollar volume and the higher payouts that you get. Even when you have to split that commission to some percentage, you're starting with a lower commission rate doing it yourself. But obviously, you had a strategy, and because I think you're a top 10 sandals producer. Is that right?
We are.
That's huge, and obviously your loyalty goes back to those years when you were starting out, because you zeroed in on that relationship. How many suppliers do you think a travel agent should try to work with in any given segment?
It's a good question. I would always say keep it on a handful, because you got to get your niche. What's your niche? Look, I don't sell Disney. My agency sells Disney. We're one of those, the Disney has an elite program or whatever. But I don't sell Disney. It's a complicated product. And I have no desire whatsoever, but I have Jen, who's my agent, and she does a ton of Disney and people love her. It's you got to find your niche. Cause I think, I did a cruise ship inspection one time years ago when I started this business. And we're sitting after lunch, you do the cruise ship inspection, and we're sitting having conversation, and, we're going around the table and everybody's sharing ideas. And this one person said, "Oh my God, I specialize in everything." And I'm like, "Everything?" And she's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Okay, so you specialize in weddings and Disney and cruises and Europe." And I said, "We can sell everything, but I don't personally believe you can specialize in everything. It's too much. Market changes daily sometimes in this business. And how the hell can you specialize in the whole world when there's so much out there?" I don't buy that. I think that I can sell the world. I can sell Disney. I don't want to.
Right. It's interesting. So just so the agents that are watching this, they can see, here is your homepage, right? Here's your homepage. And so when I get here and I look at it, I say, okay, Dreamers Travel, your path to adventure starts here. Some great pictures, but boom, these are your core focus, right? I mean, this is what so sandals, a single brand, as opposed to all inclusives, family vacations, which can fit any category. And then the niche of river cruises. Now, do you have different people that are doing those different segments like river cruises, or does everybody have a hand in something like that?
Nope, we try to get the specialty. Somebody calls in for Europe, I send them to Jen or Laura. If somebody wants, I don't believe that. We built it on a niche market, and we continue to want to do the niche market. It's funny you mentioned the sandals. We have built such a relationship with them that I feel like they're family, right? You can line every one of their general managers up and their hotel managers, and I can tell you who they are and where they manage, right? Any other hotel chain, I can't do that. I wouldn't know the general manager if he walked right in front of me. And we've built that relationship over the past 18 years because of that.
That's really interesting, because, the thing when I do an interview on TV, it's usually not related to travel agents. It's obviously travel. But the ironic thing about those interviews is when, they say, well, whatever, I'm, talking about, I don't know, it's snowing. What do you need to do to get to the airport, whatever it happens to be. And then they're always talking to me at the time when you're actually getting ready to get in the car and go to the airport. So there's really nothing you can do. So you may have heard me say at different times, like, well, maybe if you called me 3 months ago, we could have told them the right way to book this or go about this, right? Maybe get travel insurance, maybe talk to a travel professional, yada, yada, yada. What people don't realize is the person who takes 2 or 3 leisure vacations a year, which is kind of like the max that the average person's going to do, unless they're retired and they've got the means. They're traveling and they don't realize that they have zero leverage. I mean, outside of posting a negative review on TripAdvisor, what's their leverage? But you not only have the volume and the leverage with, let's take sandals, but you just mentioned the general managers. Like, can you pick up the phone and just call the general manager? And how critical is that to your success?
I think it's huge. Just because, if somebody shows up in destination and they have an issue, first off, when someone sits at my desk or is on the phone with me and says, "Mark, why should I book with you?" I said, "That's a good question, because you're going to get my cell phone number. And if you have any issues while you're traveling, you pick up that number and you call me." I had folks sit right here at my desk yesterday to plan a destination wedding to Punta Cana for next year. And we're scrolling through some of the resorts to recommend to them. And she goes, "What about this one?" I said, "Let me just share with you who I am." I said, "We're in a small little town. like Mayberry. Everybody knows everybody. They go to dinner. They talk about travel. Oh, Mark, blah, blah, blah. I said, I'm not here just to book your trip. I'm here because when my goal is that when you get to that resort, I don't want your phone. I don't want to see your phone number show up on my phone because it tells me you have a problem. So my goal is not just to book your trip. It's to get a repeat client from you, and it's to get a referral from you. So some of these hotels I know you will not be happy with, and you're going to call me when you get there and say, get me out. I'm not happy. And I want to avoid the call. So that's an ultimate goal that we, our motto around this office is if we didn't get a referral client and we didn't get a repeat, we didn't do our job. We take it very serious.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think a lot of people, because of COVID, because of the restrictions, because of all the craziness, it seems like more and more people are starting to wake up to the value of travel agents. My biggest frustration with the industry has always been the fragmentation, how everybody's got their own little, silo, and each silo cares about their own silo. And, everybody's like, this group is the best, that group is the best, as opposed to, and the associations, sometimes I wonder what their objective is, because I think to myself, if you had one objective as an association promoting the value of travel agents, that should be it. Like, explain to the average person, because I'll tell you what, I'm in a vacation destination, Fort Lauderdale. Wonderful place. Rode my bike down to the beach. I live on a canal. We go down there. We read our books. We get some food, whatever. I bet you if I talked to 10 people on the street, 9 of them would tell me that working with a travel agent costs money. And, oh, I never used one, or why would I do that? I mean, I can just go book it myself. That, I think, is the biggest challenge the industry always faces, will continue to face, but I think it's gotten better. Now, have you found people other than your brother-in-law, I think it was?
Yeah.
Yeah. Other than him, have you found people that have come around and said, you know what, man, I've seen your sign, or I've seen your stuff, and I finally reached out, and man, I am so glad I did. And then how can you leverage that as a travel agency? How can you take that and turn around and use that for marketing purposes to drive even more awareness?
It's a good question. We rebuilt our website just about 3 months ago. The ultimate goal was to build it, to give information, but to also have them contact me, right? Because I no longer just send quotes, right? I need to have a phone conversation with you, which I never required before, but I will not send a quote if you and I have not had a phone call or a Zoom call or an in-person meeting. I just think it has to start to build that relationship. It's funny you mentioned about people not using agents, not knowing about agents, think they don't exist. I bet you out of my first 10 inquiries this week about people wanting to inquire about booking a trip, 7 of them, it says, I've never used a travel agent before, so I really don't know how this works. Right?
Oh, that's a great opening. Yeah.
It's a great opening, right? Because first, that's me getting to sell myself as to who I am and why you want to work with me. And it's been huge. I had some folks yesterday come in. She says, oh my God, I've always done all these trips myself, but I feel like now it's so complicated and it's not as easy and I'm overwhelmed. And she goes, so how much are your fees? Now, fees is another whole subject in this industry, right? You know that.
Oh, hell yeah.
A lot of people are charging fees. I don't charge fees. But it's just, it's our job to sell ourselves. And we have to educate these consumers about selling ourselves, that we don't, there are no additional fees to use our services in most cases. If you're charging fees, that's a different agent. But it's just educating that client to let the consumer really doesn't know. If they've never used us, they really don't know how it works. So we have to have that engagement to explain the process of how it works.
So that's interesting. So typically fees are related to corporate travel. Most people realize, an airline ticketing fee, an XYZ fee, and the corporations pay that, small businesses pay that, whatever. Talk about the what we call planning fees. Typically, there's some people that say, hey, listen, before I even have a conversation, it's $200. That's my planning fee. That covers my cost of doing some research, et cetera, et cetera. But what I've always understood is that 9 out of 10 times they apply that to the cost of the trip. And it's a way of kind of saying, look, if you're here to kick the tires, I'm not wasting my time. If you're here and you're a serious buyer and I give you what you're looking for and you book it, it doesn't cost you anything because the supplier pays that. What's wrong with that? Or why don't you like that?
It's a good question, Mark. I can't tell you how many quotes I send out that don't book. They take my information and go book it themselves. They ghost you. They don't book it. Don't know why. But I can tell you that since we changed the motto of having the phone, the Zoom, or the in-person consultation now prior to sending quote, the closing ratio has gone up probably 80%.
Wow.
So if you don't have that, your chances of closing are going to be less. But, fees is a very sore subject in the industry in general, as well as in this office. We have another storefront agent 1/4 of a mile up the road, literally on the same side of the street. A 1/4 mile up the road is another storefront travel agent. She was there way before us, and she wasn't happy when we came in town and went storefront in 2010. So my motto is not that I'm not worth a fee, Mark. It's that if I start to charge a fee in this small little town and they call her and she doesn't charge a fee, I feel like I'm going to drive my business to her. So my goal is not to charge the fee. It's to get them on the phone or to get them in the office, and I'll close that business. Again, it's my closing ratio has gone up 80% by not sending a quote until I've talked to you or I've met with you.
Yeah, because otherwise you're just spitballing, right? You're just throwing stuff against the walls, they say.
You really are, because I don't know anything about what you want, what you like. Are you a pool person? You're a beach person. You want activities? You want nightlife? I don't know any of that till I talk to you. But fees are a sore subject. I have some friends in this industry charging, $100, $200, $300 just to have a consultation like this for a trip, and they're making $60,000, $70,000 just off fees, and it doesn't get applied to your trip. And I applaud them. I envy them. But again, I guess I'm afraid to take that leap to drive more business up the street if I charge a fee. So at this point, I just don't do it.
Well, I think you nailed it on the head. If your approach is a high closing ratio approach, the money's going to be in the booking. It's not going to be in the fees, right? So
Right.
even if I charge $200 for a trip, what do you see in an average cost of a 7-night family vacation at an all-inclusive today?
For a family of 4, just to give you an example, they're running now probably $7,000 to $9,000, where years ago they were probably 5 to 6.
Okay.
So yeah.
And what kind of commission rate does a travel agent typically earn on that?
Well, because of the volume that we're at, this is where if you're going to go out on your own, you're going to start at a much lower commission. So you want to go in, I guess, with somebody like ours. We have a good commission split with our ICs, but our commission is probably 16% on that. So that's some pretty good chunk of change.
Do the math, right? So again, I could make $100 or $200 doing the service fee, but if I'll just round it up for everyone. If it's a $10,000 trip, it's a $1,600 commission. Well, I mean, there's maybe air involved with that. So
yeah,
even at 6,000.
But we're not getting paid on air anymore, so.
Right. So what's that? At $6,000, you're talking, what's that? Just under $1,000. What's that? 960 if I'm doing the math right in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah. So $960, sure. It'd be nice to get an extra 10% on top, but at the cost of what? So interesting debate with, I think, the industry and where people want to go with that. What would you tell somebody coming into the industry today if you were bringing them either on as an IC, or let's say you were just mentoring somebody outside that was considering travel? What would be your key reasons for telling them it's a great opportunity to get into the business?
Ooh, that's a good one. We tell them straight up front, it's not easy. And don't expect overnight success, because a lot of times you'll see this Facebook ad or, oh my God, travel for free. It's all over the place. And I'll tell you straight up front, right? If you're sitting at my desk to be interviewed as an IC, if you're coming into the business for free travel, I'm not your guy.
Yeah.
If you're coming in for the perks, and then I have more damn free nights to use. I could spend 2 years away at different places. I'm not in it for the perks. I built a foundation of a business, starting out not knowing anything about the industry, and learning and growing, getting out there, making the connections, making the relationships, having Adam Stewart's phone number that I could call him and say, Adam, I've got a client and this isn't going well. I just think that you got to be prepared that you're going to work hard. You're going to put a lot of hours in. I always relate this business like real estate. They can go out and show you 10 different homes, spend 2 weekends looking at homes. If you don't go to settlement, you ain't making any money. If our clients don't check in, we're not making any money. So you could work 6, 8, 10 months before you even get your first paycheck. So
Yeah.
if
And
you're
people
not
don't
willing
realize
to do
that.
that,
Yeah.
if you're not willing to do that, it's probably not the right industry for you.
Well, it's funny when you say if someone's sitting there and they're there for the free travel, because we see all the ads. We've seen the MLM stuff. And it's always like it's either you're going to travel in first class everywhere and stay in the suites at the Four Seasons. What people don't realize, if you're watching this and you're considering travel, you're not going to be staying at the penthouse suite in the Four Seasons. You're not going to have a chauffeur-driven Mercedes picking you up. You're not going to be driving a Lamborghini with your earnings. All of that is a lot of BS and a lot of hype. It's typically an MLM thing, but it's funny because that's kind of the hook that they use to get people to come in, and that's why you see like a 98% turnover within, I don't know, 12 to 18 months for those people, because it's really a commission club. It's a consumer travel commission club.
Sure.
And it's like herding cats. But if I have 5,000 consumers that are booking 2 trips a year, and I won't mention who it was, but somebody posted about their like record bookings. And I took their record bookings that the gentleman posted on LinkedIn. I took their stated number of active travel agents, and I said, stop talking about, all the travel that's getting booked. I said, you basically have a bunch of people booking their own trips. Oh, and that triggered this guy. And you know what? I'm right. You're wrong, dude. It is what it is. And I commend them because they're making a great living. Don't get me wrong, but it degrades the value of what people like you do. You know what I mean?
It does. 99% of our business right now, Mark, is everything is repeat and referral business. That's, we don't do the bridal shows anymore. We don't spend one penny on advertising anywhere. We rebuilt the website, but 99% of our intake forms that come in through the website or even the phone calls are repeat and referral business, which is the best way to get the business. Because again, if you're booking this trip just to make $1, you're not doing justice to yourself or the industry, right? You're going to make money. But my question to anybody that has been in the industry for a while, what is your ratio of repeat business? Because if it's not over 50%, I don't think that you're servicing your client well. That's how, look, when I started this business 18 years ago, just myself, my wife came into the industry 3 years after me. She gave up a 6-figure income to come into the business. She comes into the business January 1st, 2010. And then Mark sits up the street across from the storefront that's been empty for 3 years. And I go home and I sit and have dinner with my wife. And I said, hey, I think I want to go storefront and put our office out there. She goes, are you crazy? I'm like, no. So to have home base where we have no overhead, to go to a $1,400 a month rent, it worked, right? It worked. We're doing really well, successful. Here comes COVID, crushed everything. Everybody goes home. Now we're back on storefront. We're right down the street, almost in the same location, but a different location. We have my office, my wife full-time, her part-time admin, my full-time admin, and we just hired another full-timer in October. We're doing something right.
No doubt. Plus you have 14 ICs, which is fantastic.
Yeah. And of those 14 ICs, 2 of them are producing $1 million or more in business. Outstanding.
And do they come with a book of business or do they come with nothing?
They came with nothing. And now I do feed Jennifer my Disney because I don't want to do it, but I feed her my Disney. But oh my God, she's crushing it. She's booking $25,000, $30,000 Africa trips and Portugal trips and getting repeat referral business her way, right? My other girl, Carrie, all she really focuses on is sandals, but she does Europe as well, and she does river cruising. But she's getting her own clients. I hardly feed her. Her husband came in full time with her just about 2 or 3 years ago. And they're doing outstanding. They're making some good money.
That is awesome. So I know we talked at one point about the event business. And so not unlike in the media world, I built a media business, right? And I had a brand that we put out there, it became Travel Pulse. And then off of that, we identified the needs of home-based agents to create that Agent at Home magazine. And we had offshoots, right? And we just looked at where the gaps were. So the event business that you advertise, that's run by your son, correct?
Yeah, we had our 3 boys they started the business. It was Dreamers Event Rentals. So it was Dreamers Travel and Event Rentals all under one building. And we all did well until COVID. That kind of shut everybody down because with tents, they couldn't do any outdoor weddings, no graduation parties, and no major events over 10 people, so to speak. So they struggled a little bit. And when COVID came, he actually, when he started to open back up, he went down towards Owings Mills, which is about 25, 30 minutes from us now, killing it, knocking it right out of the park. I mean, literally hitting numbers that no one, when he left us right after COVID, he had 19 tents. And currently today he has 74.
Wow.
And those tents cost you about $30,000 a piece.
So basically he's just constantly running events. So my question to you is, was the idea to diversify the revenue streams and say, hey, look, you know, if we're talking to somebody about their honeymoon, they're going to be doing a wedding. Wouldn't it be great to, hey, we can manage the, you know, the outdoor activities at your event. Now, you're not running the events per se, but you're bringing the rental equipment in for the caterers or whoever is the wedding planner. And did you have a relationship with the wedding planner, or was it more direct with the honeymoon couple thinking about, oh, wow, I didn't know you did that?
No, it actually kind of reversed, Mark, that when he came into the rentals to plan the outdoor wedding, at that point, it's like, oh, well, my dad does honeymoons. So it's kind of like they started with him because they're doing the wedding planning and the event of the wedding itself. And then through that process of needing the vendors of the flowers and the honeymoon and the DJ and all the other stuff, that was the referral piece that we have. So
you basically owe all your success to your kids.
Some of it, not all of it.
They're not allowed to watch this.
No, I don't want them to see this.
That's great. That's great. No, I love that. And, you know, this has been really great. I want to get you back on for a future episode to dig into some more granular stuff. But I think what you've shared here is going to be so helpful for people that are in the business already. And I think as an entrepreneur, I think one of the biggest challenges you have, especially if you have ADHD, which you obviously, I'm diagnosing you right now through the screen. You have it. I have it. Sometimes you sit at your desk and there's like 8,000 ways you can go, and you just need someone or some type of direction to put you on a path, right? And it sounds like you made a lot of mistakes. And I want to get into the group travel and the other stuff that we talked about on a future call, but I'll leave you with this. I always laugh when I would have somebody get interviewed for my company. Now, understand, I'm a media company. We cover the world of travel, right? You come in for an interview and I say, why do you want to work here? And they go, because I love to travel. And I said, where do you live? And they go, Sewell, New Jersey. I go, okay, well, every day you're going to travel on Interstate 295, about between 25 and 45 minutes, depending on traffic, to the office so that you can actually do this job, which has nothing to do with travel. You know, I mean, it's the irony is great. And that person doesn't get hired.
Right.
Does not get hired. Because they're not.
You know, I will just say, Mark, at the end, you know, for anyone new, that is, whether you've been in for 6 months, 12 months, if it's not working, or if you're going to come into the industry, first off, my Wendy girl is working so hard. She's only got 2 bookings. And I said, look, the only way to fail in the industry is to quit. You don't quit. You got to continue to go forward, continue to make the connections with the hoteliers and the tour operators, build those relationships. And once you get that foundation built, I think the world is in this to you. You can make any amount of income. And if you're going to be new and start, I would say, don't try this on your own. I couldn't imagine coming in today like I did 18 years ago on my own and try to do all this by myself. I would never go back and do that again. But find a mentor, find some place you can plug in. You get some of these host agencies, Mark, and they've got 800, 1,000, 1,500 ICs. And is that really good? Is that the best model for you and your business? Because where's the mentorship? Where's that one-on-one training? You know, when a new IC comes in, I either do a one-on-one, I set it like 5:30 to 6:30 every Monday, and I'll train them on product, on booking engines or whatever they want to do. They got to email me Sunday night and say, this is what I want to learn tomorrow. And I either come into the office or we do a Zoom call. So I devote that one-on-one time to that IC to help them grow. Wendy is so blessed and so grateful to be a part of us. And I want to see her grow, and she's going to. She's going to keep going. So, but don't quit. I think that's the key, is don't quit, but you got to be willing to work hard.
Yeah, exactly. And how many people do you think do it as a side gig to start and then get into it? You did 2 jobs, obviously, to build it.
Yeah, I did the part-time gig, right? You know, I say the agency we had down the street. I'm being very honest. I hope she's watching. I came storefront because of her inappropriate comment, right? She knew I was starting travel, and there was a little coffee shop down the street called Snickerdoodles. I'd always meet all my clients at Snickerdoodles. We have a cup of coffee. I take my laptop, and then she made a comment to one of our BDMs. Oh, Mark's not a real travel agent. He doesn't have an office. That burnt me so bad, Mark. I'm like, watch this, girl. I'm gonna get you. And I'm not a revengeful kind of person, but you know, I'm a karma kind of person. But I'm like, that was wrong. And
Yep.
you know, we were home based, and I didn't know anything. I'm still learning. But once I learned enough, and I said, you know what, we're literally a quarter mile down the road, same side of the street, and we're here and we're successful. And I don't know what she does, but you know, with St. Lucia awards, I got all my Jamaica awards up on the wall. We're very successful, and I take a lot of pride in that. But I'm not here for the free perks. I'm not here for the gimmies. I don't want to say what's in it for me, what's in it for my clients. Because if you do the clients right, you're going to build a good business, make a lot of money.
Yeah, it's so funny you say that. And, you know, I'm a broken down ex-basketball player, 5 right knee surgeries, you know, 3 hip surgeries, just got a hip replacement, you know. And when I got out of college and when my basketball career ended because of injuries, I was trying to fuel that competitive spirit. And the only place to do that was sales. And my goal was to literally be like Darth Vader and come in and destroy the competition. The irony is the competition actually bought my company when I sold it. And,
Nice.
and I showed up that morning when they came into the office and they're like, we want nothing to do with you, bro.
Yeah.
We're like, we don't need you. Goodbye. And then thankfully I sold what I did because 6 months later, COVID hit. Really, 5 months.
Wow.
It was crazy, man. And now I'm back at it. And yeah, maybe I need some new medication.
Yeah, you're still crazy, but I'm glad you're back, right? I know when we met you at the Usher concert, it was like, that damn Mark, he's a cool guy. You know, it must be the name, right? But it's good to see you back. And just happy to work with you and be a part of your new success here. So,
well, thanks, man. It's all about the travel agents, as you know. I've been a big proponent, and that will continue on TV as well as here. And I love getting the word out. Thank you very much for sharing all your insights. And I will catch up with you. I'll let you know when this goes live.
okay.
And yeah, man, say hi to Laura, and have a great rest of your week, buddy. Cheers.
Take care. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. All right. That was Mark Hennigan. Travel agents, like that's how you build a business. And I think Mark really outlined it. And interesting enough, I guarantee when his wife, Laura, joined his company and walked away from a 6-figure corporate job, that's scary as heck for so many people. But that's what you do if you're an entrepreneur and you want to build your business. So kudos to them. Mark Hennigan, Dreamers Travel. It's dreamerstravel.com. And, you know, I'm sure if you're a travel agent out there and you're in that Maryland area, even if you're not in Maryland, I guarantee that if you wanted to have a conversation with Mark about building your business and maybe even becoming an IC for him, I'll bet you he would be very happy to have that conversation. Till next time, I'm Mark Murphy. This is TravelTube.com, the place where experts in travel live, and those experts are the travel agents / travel advisors. Till next time, thanks for watching.